It was a gap. A lot of restaurant chefs are actually one of the lowest paid professions out there. And people just go, oh my God, that's not true. It's true, Google it. I hate cooking. Asian women should not be forced to cook. So I was great. I was like a great trader. But this year, I loved working on Why Hungry, and so did Hainan. Like, we have had celebrities like Cristiano Ronaldo, even Sonam Kapoor. Some of these people that come through were like, whoa, that's crazy. We got to a point where we were like, oh my God, like, should we do this full time? Like, what do you think? What do you think? And there was a lot of psychological fear, actually. One day, I get called into a room. And like, for a trader, that's weird. Like, you don't go into rooms. You've done something really wrong or really good, which I had not. It's so unprofessional. You're selling chefs and savants. In Chinese, there's a saying like, no pressure, no diamonds. Go quit. So I quit the next day.
Hi, Siddhi. Welcome to Figuring Out, and thank you so much for taking the time and being here on a Sunday morning. Your story is one I'm really excited to hear about. I sort of did a little Google search, came across your blog, and we seem to have something in common. You used to work in credit, and I still work in credit. So that got me excited thinking about, okay, former women in banking and what they are up to now. So for people who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're here today.
Yeah, of course. Firstly, thank you for having me. Very excited to be here. I'm Siddhi. I grew up in India, went to New York, Columbia University, where I studied artificial intelligence, but for some reason decided I really wanted to be a trader. So I got a job on a trading floor. I actually got deported to London, or I would have, like, it would have been true. So I moved to London overnight, spent 6.5 years on the trading floor, trading asset-backed mortgage securities, then financial credit bonds. Absolutely loved it. Thought it was the best job in the world. Didn't understand why anyone else did anything different. But then, I just had like the itch to build something in this world. My dad's a businessman, entrepreneur, and I think, and my older sister started her own business, and I just think I always really, really wanted to.
Okay.
And I finally met my co-founder also on the trading floor. So she was in sales, I was in trading. We both felt we found an idea that resonated with us. Like, I missed home cooked food so much when I was in London and also New York, because we were like, what's happening? Like, why can't I ever have great home cooked food? It's either delivery or you're going out to restaurants.
Right.
It just felt horrible all the time, and we were very busy. So we were like, oh my God, let's like quit and solve our own problem. And that's how Why Hungry was born. And I think that's like the short story of what got us to Why Hungry.
It's been a great story so far, and we're going to get into all of this, but maybe take us back in time. So you were in the US, you moved to London, great banking career, and then what was the origination for Why Hungry, right? Did you, for instance, did you love food? I know you said you were missing the home cooking, but there's one thing about eating and there's one thing about preparing, right? For instance, did you enjoy making food, or was it more the process of, I want to eat, have this delicious food? What was the full process there?
So I was actually an outsider. I hate cooking.
Okay.
And I think South Asian women should not be forced to cook.
Love that.
And it's ridiculous that we keep getting asked, do you cook? For me, and Hainan is more of a foodie. So she loves her food and a little bit more wine. And we came together, firstly, because we were like, it's crazy for busy professionals. We don't have this. Mostly because in India and China, we firsthand witnessed the power of cooks and how we can have amazing food.
Yeah.
And that was normal. It wasn't very bougie to have someone over and like have great home cooked food.
In India, it's very common. My friends tell me it's very common to have a maid and a cook at your place, right?
Absolutely.
You can give them your requirements. I want healthy options. I want this for dinner, but you have a cook.
Exactly. And we grew up like that. And yes, there's a part privilege, but not really, because like such a large part of population, maybe you can afford it every day, maybe you can afford it once a week, maybe once a month, but it's there. The option's there for people to come over. So that was our first insight. And we really thought it was missing in the developing world to a greater extent. Like, I came from New York, London, Hainan also was in Berlin, Germany. It's just not there. It's only restaurants and delivery. And then the second really big insight that we had, being in trading or like the finance world, it was a gap. So the insight was that a lot of restaurant chefs are actually one of the lowest paid professions out there. And people just go, oh my God, that's not true. It's true. Google it. It's crazy that they work really long hours, have kind of horrible lives. Like, they're stuck in the kitchen. It's so stressful. And they make such little money doing that.
But what's meant to be prestigious, right? As in, as a chef, the culinary skills that you need to have and the training behind it. Or at least that's something I'm learning for the first time. Didn't realize that.
Yeah, absolutely. Whereas on the flip side, if you ask a customer, oh, what do you think? Like, would you ever have a private chef? They'd be like, oh my God, no, that's so bougie. Like, there's no way I could afford a private chef. And we were like, But look, these people aren't even earning that much, and you think like you can't afford it. Like there's something clearly wrong
Demand
here.
and supply.
Correct. It was basic demand and supply. There was this huge gap of just allowing chefs to be accessible, affordable, and actually it's like the whole ladder. Of course, there are people that will pay for Michelin chefs and all this stuff. And even for that, we were like, there's no easy, cool, slick way. Like the UX is terrible for whatever exists. But really for us, we were like on this, like people like us working in finance, we were earning a decent amount.
Mm-hmm.
There was no easy way to hire a private chef. And we were like, we'll pay restaurant prices. Like we'll pay what we pay either at Oaxaca or like, no, depending on the restaurant we go to, but where do we get a chef like this?
Yeah.
So for us, yeah, just basic demand and supply. We did not understand why that existed. And we firsthand experienced it. And we were like, this is a great quality of life having access to something like this.
That's amazing. And I love the energy that's coming from you talking about Why Hangry. So you came up with a concept, like there was a thought process there, right?
Yeah.
How do you get through the tech, the designing? How did you come up with a name? So was there one of you, between you and Hainan, was there one of you who was a bit more techie? Was there one who was focused more on marketing? So I'm kind of curious who did what.
Yeah, sure. So I was a trader. Hainan was in sales. I'm also artificial intelligence major.
Mhm.
So I'm definitely like the
The
techie.
techie. Mhm.
To be honest, the name, I came up with the name back in 2018. That was before we even thought we were going to work on the idea.
Oh, wow.
And it was like a 10-minute thing. I was like, oh, like, why hangry if you could book a private chef? Oh my God, why hangry? That was it. So I think like for
Smart.
name is very like overrated. I think over the years, people have hated it. People have loved it. And so many people have tried to tell us change it. And it was like, dude, okay, if this grows and it's big enough, we'll think about it one day. So I think
Yeah.
like name is one of those things where just like get on with it. Like, you know,
Okay.
there'll always be something else. And actually we got a .com domain, which is it's huge. You can't get a .com domain nowadays.
Yeah.
So that's like the name part. In terms of split, to be honest, when you start a company, there are no different divisions. Like there is no tech, marketing, blah, blah. It's just we had an idea.
Get into it.
And we were very lean. We always knew it's not about getting trapped into like a million different things. We just had to test. So we actually had a PDF. This is ridiculous. We had a PDF. We wrote a bunch of names of dishes. And we were like, pricing should be like just something we came up with. I think at that point, we were very cheap. We came up with something like £100.
I love it.
Because founders always like underprice themselves because
Yeah.
they think, oh my God, no one has money to pay me. And we just came up with £100 and we were like, we sent it to all of our colleagues in finance and we were like, can you please book a private chef? Like you'll get 16, 17 meals or whatever for £100. Let us know what you think. And it was just PDF. And then they just chose their dishes back on WhatsApp and we were like, cool, we'll send a private chef to you. It was that
Oh,
easy.
wow,
So that's how
okay.
we started.
That's amazing. So there was a testing process in place.
Yeah.
Let's get to when you two took that leap of faith and then decided to quit and do this full time. When was that?
For me, that was, I think like August 2009 was like the last of my finance days,
Mhm.
something like that. And we both quit a week apart.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like what got us to the quitting point was Hein and I were actually working on the side along with our jobs. So like 1 year ago, to be clear, like I had like an outstanding in credit award, right? Not award, but like they just like marked that on your recommendation. So I was great. I was like
Yeah.
a great trader.
Mhm.
But this year, I loved working on Why Hangry and so did Hainan. Like we would wake up and actually at that point we used to do groceries and now we don't, like chefs do it. But at that point we used to do the groceries and then we used to send the chefs to our customers' home. So we would wake up, do a bunch of stuff, then we'll get done at work.
Weekdays?
Yeah, weekdays. So we'll wake up
Because
at like
we know how early we normally
yeah,
start.
exactly. So and the thing is like then instead of getting in at 6:45 a.m., we started getting in by 7:10 because we were trying to eke out that extra bit of time.
Yes, defo.
Then we'd get done at 6 o'clock, go to a cafe and start working on Why Hangry, like during the weekday. Every single weekend we worked on Why Hangry. Like I was over at Hainan's apartment in Westminster. We'd be like, perfect, we're doing Chef Trial. It was such a blast. Like everything in our life was about Why Hangry. And we got to a point where we were like, oh my God, like, should we do this full time? Like, what do you think? What do you think? And there was a lot of psychological fear actually.
Mhm.
And I remember us flying back to India and China to like ask our dads, like, are you on board? Should we quit? Because we really respect what they think. And like both of us shared the same values. It's really funny because Hainan's dad was like, in Chinese, there's a saying like, no pressure, no diamonds, go quit.
Love
And
that.
my dad, it's so interesting because he's always told me, you're barely earning anything. as a businessman, like you earn more, just go take the leap. And then when finally I was like, oh, I'd love to, he was like, oh, but you're earning such a great amount now. Like, why risk it?
We know how big the bonuses are in finance, especially as a credit trader for you.
Yeah.
So
he saw that and he was a little bit like, why are you giving that up? At that point, I just looked at him and I was like, it's either this or I'm going to go do an MBA in US and that's going to cost $200K.
Yeah.
So, and then he just looked at me and he goes, okay, maybe you should just go. Try making money rather than spend money. So I think that was like how I got my dad on board. She got her dad on board. Then we went back to Barclays. And we were just thinking, right, what's the best time to quit? We really want to quit. So we had already started formulating this. We were like, right, let's get to the point because now our parents are on board. Awesome. Meanwhile, something really hilarious happens. So obviously, like with Why Hangry, and like a lot of credit, as you know, is like about building relationships with clients. And you speak about every extracurricular you do because that's how you build a relationship. You don't talk about work. And then, so we used to do Bloomberg chats with our customers and clients. And I was like, oh, by the way, I'm working on Why Hangry. There's this thing, da-da-da. Do you want to do this trade? And that was constant in our chats. We'd already declared this to compliance. So one day, I get called into a room. And like, you know, for a trader, that's weird. Like, you don't go into rooms.
Unless
you've done something really wrong or really good, which I had not. So I was like, okay, that's weird. Fine, cool. Yep, I'm coming. And as I was walking, I saw Heinen with like a very straight face also walking. And I was like, oh God, this is definitely about Why Hangry. What did we do? And we got into the room with a straight face. We were like, yep, cool, what's up? And then they were just like, we don't understand why you're mentioning Why Hangry so much. Like, you know, it's so unprofessional. You're selling chefs and savants. And the thing is, I literally was hearing this and I was like, I can't. This is too funny. But also, in that room, I was like, let's be clear. Obviously, like, men talk about sports. I will talk about whatever extracurricular. We never made a sale. However, we walked out of that room. I was dying. It was so funny. I looked at Heinen and I was like, we need to quit tomorrow. So I quit the next day. And Heinen quit a week after. And actually that one incident of them asking us what's going on just really made us very quickly realize we were great. Like, we loved our jobs and we just didn't love it as much. And we wanted to do something else. So it kind of gave us like the stick to quit almost. Yeah.
What I'm hearing here is this great passion, right? So what for me was really interesting hearing your story is that you started feeling the passion for Why Hangry to such an extent that you're ready to give up on the money, you were ready to give up on this great job. And to have the conviction of quitting in 24 hours, that's insane. Or do you feel like you were going to quit anyway?
Yeah, we were going to quit anyway. I think I would say it took around 2.5 months for us to mentally get ready that we were going to quit and we were going to give up a paycheck. And I think ultimately it came down to this. We actually made a lot of calls to founders that had quit. So I knew someone who was like head of ABS mortgages at Goldman Sachs. So I was like, he's earning like, oh God, like whatever, 10, 15, 20 times I'm earning. And he said something and I was like, wow, it was just so simple. He quit, went to India and he went, look, I really feel even if in 10 years I lost everything, let's say my company didn't work, everything was lost, I would still have earned so much. Like the experience, the journey, and I think I would have still been better off than in this profession. And I feel like speaking to a lot of founders made me realize that none of them regretted it. And the thing is, life is short. And it's kind of like, what is the worst case? We have savings. The actual worst case is that you would have failed. And it's not a failure because you gave it a go and you got all these learnings. But the worst case is you would have failed and come back 3, 4, 5 years trying to look for a job.
A different bank, a different role.
Correct, but the thing is you will get a job because you have those skills or another job. And once we really articulated that and the fact that we did have savings and then we would actually last a couple years without even needing to worry about money, it just was like, right, okay, we got this. And we had like supportive like boyfriends and parents, and it was a lot more psychological, the fear, than actually what could go wrong.
Right.
Because, yeah.
Looking back, when you went through this whole process, right? And you quit, was there a reaction from your team?
Yeah, for sure. I think there are public reactions and then private. And so I think like publicly, actually, it was great. Like we felt very supported. Like we got to keep our deferred, and it was really nice. Like and I actually love everyone on my team. The funny thing is like I make all these like jokes, but Barclays was an incredible part of my journey. Like everyone who I interacted with, or almost everyone, was incredible. Like my bosses were insane. Like really respect them, the hustle, everything. However, I'd say like there were peripheral people, not directly our bosses, that like we knew behind our backs they were like idiots. These girls are just starting a catering company. And we heard this stuff and we were like, we'll show them.
I love that.
Watch what we'll do because you don't even understand. So I think in a way there was a lot of positive support and like some of those people actually ended up investing in us and it was great. And there was some like behind the scenes hatred which we channeled into we'll show you, like you just wait and watch. So I think overall I think it was great because we got a little bit of both.
I love that. You remind me of, with this whole podcast journey. So there are so many times I question this, right? When I look at my number of downloads, it's like across YouTube and Spotify, it's like probably 150. The Reels work really well. You've got like thousands of people watching you. Not everyone go back and listen to the whole conversation. Correct. And then I had Niaz on my podcast. He's co-founder of Millennium Money. He's a corporate lawyer. And then he told me, he was like, you've got 150 people listening to you. Think about this. If you were in a room and you had 150 people there in person, what would you say? I'm like, yeah, it's insane. 150 people listening to me and my guests. It's like, yeah, then why is it any different when it's over, when it's online?
I love that.
And that changed my perspective so much. So for you to have like a handful of people backing you, believing in you. And I love the bit about, we'll show you. So we'll show you and you showed them, right? So Why Hungry is now a great website and I encourage people in the UK to go and take a look. It's amazing. I'm looking to book. I was telling my sister on Friday, I was like, this girl is coming. This is a background. We should actually look into this because we love hosting. We've hosted so many times at our place, but we'll look into Why Hungry.
Awesome, and I'll give you a discount too.
Oh, I love it. Yay. So you quit your job in 2019, then COVID happened. Was that the crux of when you actually really, really worked and scaled up on Why Hungry? Talk to us for the business journey and talk to us about Dragon's Den because you too went on it, right?
Yeah, so we quit in 2019. Luckily got into Google for Startups. I say lucky. To be honest, we applied to a lot of accelerators, got into this one. We were like, great. It was equity free. It was awesome. It really helped define our journey. But going into 2020, like...
Can I just ask on this one? Did they reach out to you? Did they scout you? Did you reach out?
No, so as we were quitting, we just looked at every single accelerator out there and we applied. And actually Google ended up starting their very first female cohort, this like program.
Amazing.
And we were one of the 10 startups that made it. And we then got to meet another 9 peer startups, all women founders. I thought like every tech company started by a woman. It was hilarious, but it was great. And it was, I would say it's fluke, but what I'll say is like, if you reach out far and wide enough and apply to enough stuff, you'll get lucky, right? Like so it is like you put in the work. So that's how we got into Google for Startups. And that was like, it was huge because we walked in as like clueless people, like just kind of being like, oh, I would love to have a company that's like huge.
Right.
And we came out having our very first website, having a sense of like, like what we're selling, like refining our branding. And actually like people from Google for Startups, some of them have invested in us. Some of them still advise us. It was awesome. Mm-hmm. That continued till 2020 when COVID hit, which was wild. COVID was actually massively disruptive because, yes, people were doing these secret parties and then booking Why Hungry, but like for a large part of it, it was illegal. It was illegal to go to each other's house. It was like people were having COVID left and right. So imagine not only customers having COVID, chefs having COVID. It was a disaster. Like I hate, like I was like, this is a nightmare. Like the number of bookings and then refunds we process is insane. But then but to be honest, like we kind of were like, YOLO, we'll just use this. This time is insane. So let's just use this as best as we can.
Right.
So for us, that meant Hainan moved into my apartment. We did Instagram cooking classes every day live because we realized the cost of acquiring a follower had dropped to like not even like a penny. It was ridiculous. And it was free. Like if we just ran cooking classes, people joined that every single day.
Amazing.
I hate cooking. And we cooked every single day for 60 days. Like at the end of it, I was like, I never want to see anything again. Like we cooked everything from Korean dishes to Indian. And the thing is, we'd get on these cameras and we'd be like, yeah, we know the recipe. And we were like, what do we need to do? What do we need to do? And we lit our house on fire once. Like I just had PTSD because like there literally was like fire in a pan and Hainan running to chuck it out the window because we don't know. We never cooked. We never really did this level of cooking.
You were learning to teach.
Exactly. But that's not even what we were doing. We just wanted those followers to follow Why Hungry's Instagram. And we were like, that's like the best thing we can do.
That's very honest of you.
Yeah. And we wanted to like, And that time we supported our chefs by having virtual cooking classes and batch cooking, all the stuff we launched, but that was all filler. It was never what we thought Why Hungry will be, but we just had to survive and we had to keep ourselves engaged. And then I think every time COVID lifted, that's when we saw spurts of growth and we were like, oh my God, like this makes sense. Like we're not really paying on marketing, we're not really doing all this stuff, but it's growing. Like people are telling each other, and that was exciting. And during like the depths of the misery of COVID, Dragon's Den scouted us. They were like, hey, we think you should apply. And we really say hell yes to everything because like, why wouldn't we? Like, what else were we going to do? And why would we say no? So we, at principle, most things that come to us, we say yes. We said yes. There's quite a long process of Dragon's Den, like takes forever. They're very, like the due diligence process is very thorough. So after back and forth, we were like, let's just keep going. Who even knows? We finally got to the audition bid, which was like a whole day in Manchester. We actually were in the den for 2.5 hours, which is wild because like the episode's only 15. Like it's all, like it's never re-recorded. It's just like one clear take. And then even after that, and then we won on screen. I say on screen because we didn't accept investment. But even after all of that, we didn't know we were going to get aired. So then finally they told us in 2021.
So there are actually people who don't get aired?
Correct. And I think it might be like 50% for it. There's quite a lot of startups that don't make it on TV.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
And it doesn't, so I think like we knew that we really needed a positive outcome because our theory was, I think chances of airing our TV are correlated to positive outcomes. But like, I don't know. I think that's still true, but like, that's our hunch. Yeah, anyway, like that happened when Dragon's Den came out. That was huge. That was huge because like there is a lot of advertising and PR traffic that you can't really buy. But I think, that was our journey of 2021. We actually raised investment after saying no to the Dragon's Den investment before it even aired. So we didn't know when we said no to the Dragon's Den investment what was going to happen. But then in 2021, as the markets opened up, and like we come from markets, so I feel like there's a good pulse of like what's going on, right? When you see like stocks tanking and everything going to shit in a way, you're like, dude, let's just not. But then 2021, there was like this great moment and we were like, this is the time we need to fundraise. And it actually took us just 2 weeks to close like $1 million or something because we had all of these friends in finance, all of our peers, ex-bosses. And the pitch is very simple. Like as a young startup, you get EIS or SEIS relief in UK. That basically means for the first 150K, that's 150, like if you're an investor investing 10K, you immediately get back 5K in taxes. Like so literally you get a check.
Okay.
So you've invested 10K, but you get back 5K. That's just leverage. It's insane. And let's say my company goes bust, you get back another 50%. So your downside is only 2.5K. That's nothing. So I think once we gave this pitch and we were like, guys, come on, this is nothing. We built up that round pretty quickly. And like the valuation we raised at was like...
And is that still in place? In terms of the tax relief? Okay.
Yes.
So when you were on Dragon's Den, right? I feel like we went over that very quickly, but it's so impressive. Like for me, like that's totally impressive. Like to actually have the confidence on going on TV, to pitch your idea, to have the confidence of believing in it actually for me. There's a lot of self-belief that I'm hearing from you. So you receive, I think, from the Dragon's Den, you receive about 100,000. That was the offer?
Yeah.
If I'm not wrong. How do you walk away? I know you say that was a time when stock markets was really booming and, you trusted the brand and you had a belief in it.
No, actually, at that point, it was really bad.
That was when it was bad. Okay.
Yeah.
How do you walk away when you have an offer of 100,000? Because 100,000, I think, for a startup, right? That's insane. I know you had just quit your job and it was just the two of you running the whole thing. What's the self-belief, like knowing that, hang on, there's so much more value in here. We think this can get a much better offer. And then you went up to raise $1 million, right?
Yeah.
How do you go about this?
So coming from finance, I think you're in a privileged position because you understand like markets and like comms. So I think the easiest way to say what our startup is worth is look at market comms or market competitors and say, cool, like this is another consumer marketplace, similar duration to us, what is that worth? Or how much did they raise at? So I think when we quickly did that, Dragon's Den on average, and it's probably changing a little bit now, but it's a lot lower. I think if you can raise like 100K at $1 million valuation on Dragon's Den, which we were offered, you could probably raise 500K at 5 million in the market if you have like good pedigree, you're a tech startup, or you could probably raise $1 million at 10, like whatever those numbers are higher even as an average in the tech industry. And it's a funny time to say that right now. Obviously 2023 is a really weird year, but just generally Dragon's Den is already lower than average. We knew that. And for us, we already aim for higher than average. We were like, we're a great pedigree. Like, we know what we're doing. This idea is going to be $1 billion idea. Of course, we're going to like stack the odds in our favor. So for us, Dragon's Den, to be honest, we did consider it. We had calls, but at some point you realize to build a $1 billion tech marketplace is not easy, and 100K is nothing. And you actually need people that are like operators, investors that can really guide you in the right way.
Right.
And those resources we need to plug in ourselves, and we need to find those people. And that's something we would not have gotten from Dragon's Den Investment.
Okay.
So it was like, yeah, cool. We just said no, and we just trusted. We believed that we could do better. And I think we were like, worst case, if we need to put in more money, we would, but we're not going to take. Like, this just makes no sense.
Yeah, I love the self-belief. There's so many movies that we can name, so many that I've watched, that I love, and it screams self-belief. And sometimes in a world where, you know, no one else believes in you, I think just having that to hold on is amazing. You when you talk about, you know, the whole Why Hungry process, right? And it's interesting because I came across this Telegraph article, and you could correct me, but it seems like in the first year of trading, about nearly 20% of startups fail, and eventually it's nearly about 60% of startups that fail over 3 years of trading. And I think that's also like a global stats. How many years of Why Hungry so far? Would you say the whole journey? Like 3-4 years?
Yeah, we're about 3.
So where's Why Hungry now? Like looking at this whole journey over the past 3-4 years.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's crazy. It feels a lot shorter because I feel like when I think of COVID, like, those years were a blur and hardly count.
True.
However, that being said, I think we've lasted. We're now at a point where we're UK-wide. We actually graduated from Y Combinator that, like, fully changed our trajectory. And that was in 2022. It's, like, the world's largest accelerator based out of Silicon Valley that created, like, Airbnb, Coinbase, Stripe.
Yeah.
And I think it was really 2022 where we changed everything. So I think Why Hungry has had different births. And from every one of these like births, like, and by birth, I mean like we almost died and then we were born again, we learned something huge. And every startup will have that, whether you call it pivots or just like, you know, like just finding something else that like really is like the right answer. Yeah. And I think, yeah, we're in like a really exciting shape because I just feel there's a whole world of possibility. We're UK wide. We have over 700 plus chefs. You can hire chefs starting from like something like £40 per person for dinner party, and you can even split the bill. So like very accessible all the way to like Master Chef winners that you see on TV or Michelin's chefs. So there is really the whole range. Like we have had celebrities like Cristiano Ronaldo, Halle Berry use us. And like some of these people that come through were like, whoa, that's crazy. And I know like even Sonam Kapoor, who lives in London, used us. And I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to go meet her. But it's really exciting because I feel like all these things that were insane at some point or we never thought could happen is just kind of normal now. Like all of the Made in Chelsea cast has used us, and it's just, I feel like the bubble we're in is very exciting. We're currently launching like Great British Bake Off 2022 winner.
Amazing.
Who is this amazing Malaysian immigrant woman who like kicks
Is that
ass.
Sabrina?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes.
She's
Saibira
great.
Yusuf. She's amazing. And her
She's
cakes are
great.
amazing. And we're launching her, and there's like an insane...
I really want her for my podcast.
Yes, I'll make the intro, but she's like having an insane rooftop pop-up tea like end of this month, and it's actually ticketed, so you can even go to the pop-up.
I would love to.
But yeah, all these incredible things are happening, and we're just flying with it because we're like, you know, we are on a spot where we have enough runway, we have an insane team, we want to support chefs, we actually want to make it possible for anyone to hire a private chef for anything they like, dinner party, holiday home. There's so many use cases. And on the flip side, to support chefs earn more income on the side. Like, because even chefs are happier when they do private chefs on the side. So I think like we're in this like bubble, and it's full of possibilities, and it's a great shape. And we've raised $3 million so far. I think, yeah, the aim is still to be $1 billion company at the minimum. But I think, yeah, it's a good spot to be in.
And I think it's possible, right? You mentioned the Y Combinator program, and for people not in the UK, and equally I didn't know about this. So you say like they backed the founders. I think was that Brian Chesky. He was like the founder of Airbnb. Airbnb is now market cap I think 82 billion or something. So there's a world of possibilities there. So what's like when you think about the journey, like what's next for Why Hungry? And in the midst of all of this, right? So you're married, you've got your family life. how do you balance the whole hustle, right? Is it even a hustle now? Is it like a full-time job, right?
Yeah, we're full-time working. We're a team of 12. I think getting very clear on your priorities makes it feel very less, like, I don't like the word busy. A lot of people are busy all the time, but like if you know your priorities. And for me, as I've grown in age, and I think as we've done Why Hangry, my first priority is like my close family, and then like let's say my husband. Feel so serious. I still won't use that word partner. And then like Why Hangry is actually probably like they share the spotlight. Then there are a lot of friends that I think are acquaintances, and it's like, oh, would I see them all the time? No. And I feel it's nice to know who your very close friends are and kind of that circle, because then you spend time accordingly. And I feel like for a lot of other random events or parties that I would have gone to before, I just say no because I don't have time. And I feel like that's not on my priority. But then there are a lot of like events we go to, like we do a lot of Why Hangry events or like Y Combinator or meeting different founders. And those are really great because you feel charged, you meet all these cool people. And those are networking, and it's like really fun networking, and that's a part of my life. So I think like now I've constructed a sense of what's important to me, to the point where I actually have free days and I love me time. I love reading. I love like thinking of like what this company really needs to grow and having that creative space. So I think just knowing really what is your priority and saying no to a lot of random stuff that you feel compelled to say yes. So I have no guilt anymore. I don't accept stuff that I don't like. If I accept it, I definitely make it because I hate flaking. And I think I'm very clear on that side. So in terms of priority, at least so far, I kind of have it balanced, although I don't see my partner that much because I think we both have very insane jobs.
You're grabbing lunch with him right after. So.
Exactly. So I schedule that. Exactly. You're right. You're right. So you end up just scheduling stuff around each other.
I think it's great because hustling, it takes a lot of time, right? And I think, like going back to your story, you believed in it so much that you were ready to put in the hours, the work, the sweat, the blood. And it's a journey in itself. And I think when you get to that age where, for instance, you got married, like there are so many different things that you need to juggle. And sometimes it feels like it's so overwhelming. I want to quit on one thing. But what I'm also hearing is that you went on a sort of diet, like cleaning out maybe connections that were not that close of a connection. As you say, like some of more acquaintances than friends. And I think eventually when you get for that journey, and as you get older and you get more mature, your circle of friends and who matter really get close. Like it's a small group.
I completely agree. Yeah.
And I think now when you think about your partnership with Hainan as well, are you proud of what you've accomplished so far?
Yes. I think Hainan is probably my most successful relationship ever. It's true. And I think I always laugh because sometimes I think
really
I don't even communicate as well as with my partner or like my husband as I do with Hainan. And the thing with Hainan is we are the most important relationship in a way because so much depends on us. Like how we even act or react in our personal life is a byproduct of how we are with each other. And we came from sales and trading, which actually is a little bit of a toxic environment in terms of how they teach you to behave with each other, because I love it, don't get me wrong, like it was really fun. However, it sort of brings out this like instant gratification side in you. So when we started any conversation, it would turn into an argument very quickly, and the goal was to like show that you're right. So like would start with like, no, that's what I think, and we would just treat it like a trading floor as though we were trying to close a bond sale. It was really bizarre. And I think at some point we realized, we were like, wow, we're in the startup world, so actually there's nothing that's so urgent that it needs to be discussed now, so we don't need to have the shouting match. We actually need to be quite supportive. So what we need to say is, okay, I hear you, let me have a think. Or actually, have you considered this point? You don't learn this in finance. So we had to actually learn civilized ways of communicating, how to get into a conversation and have a very good like result. And it's taken us 3 years. We've also had a coach, and we decided, let's get a coach for both of us. And in those sessions, we'll actually roll in being like, nope, everything is great, Hainan and I are on the same page. And then the coach would ask questions, and this tension would surface, and we were like, where did that come from? I thought I really liked you, but it's not about liking the person. It's about the goal is to have zero relationship debt. And this is a crazy concept, but what that means is, let's say today we have something we're annoyed about. the very natural reaction for someone is like, well, when you did this in the past, then I did this. And
It's
you're,
like in dating.
and you're stacking things, you're stacking arguments. You're like, you're not talking about today and now because you have this debt and you've not solved stuff in the past. So every new argument that comes up, you're like, well, let's talk about that and that and that and that and that. And you try to bring up every instance. And that's horrible. And the thing is, why didn't you resolve that then? And so the thing is, it's not easy. And every time things get tough, it actually becomes a lot harder because like you then want to just
You're
shout about
piling it up.
Correct. And then like over the process, we came to realize things that were bad for both of us. Little things like if you're frustrated, don't write that in text to your co-founder because that's going to destroy their day. They're going to be like, what the hell? Why is this like negatively charged comment written? And then they'll get into this keyboard match. That's not good. Don't do that. And I think there are all these little rules we created over time. And now I can say we're at relationship dead zero. And if something comes up, one of us will bring it up. And then the other person, instead of reacting, because the moment you try to tell someone you're hurt, the other person thinks because of them, they'll be like, oh my God, you're telling me I'm bad. They'll be like, no, well, what, but, what about this? And it's hilarious or all of this stuff you don't learn anywhere, but we learned ourselves. And we were like, perfect. If now someone brings something, we know they're hurt. And the other person's job is to just listen and be like, all right, well, that wasn't what I wanted to do. Clarify. Apologize if they've done something wrong, or just clarify that it wasn't active. And then you kind of wrap that conversation up and then you park it because you've resolved it. So we're at relationship debt zero. And that's a wonderful feeling because that just means I have 100% trust.
I love that concept, relationship debt zero. Do you think that's something you can also apply to like your family relationships, your relationship with your husband?
100%. I just think it's not as easy. And I think you need to actually invest a lot of time and like you need to believe like having lower arguments will be helpful. And there's a lot that goes in. So Hein and I have done it together. I think to redo that with someone else is hard.
Right.
So I think like, Hein and I have figured this out, but it's not easy.
Okay.
Would I say my partner and I figured it out? Probably not.
I do think there's a lot to take here, and I think there's so much that I've learned today, and I think just hearing your journeys, it's really inspiring, and I think there's so many startups who would love to hear your story. Before we get on to, actually, it might be the last question, but maybe just an observation with me. I always say to my guests, like, this is not Diary of a CEO, like Steven Bartlett. I'm like, this is not a Diary of a CEO. I'm here to learn. And today I felt like, this is actually Diary of a CEO because you're telling me about your whole founding story of Why Hungry. So Dee, what's the one thing that you think you've figured out so far throughout life in general? It could be anything.
I think last year, through the depths of our burnout, actually, and we've had a lot of highs and lows. So like especially startups have like very low lows and high highs. And like when you're high highs, you're like, I'm invincible. And then when you fall, you're like, oh my God, I'm like the worst person in the world. Like everyone might think, who am I? I think what I've realized is like the power of mental resilience. But what that means is, that was my 2023 goal, to build mental resilience by building physical discipline. What that means is like, you need to like, do whatever, like work out your body, eat some of that good stuff, see your friends, learn how to shut down, journal, like cleanse your thoughts, not let bad stuff marinate. And the reason you do that is because every day it's like a hygiene. You are getting ready to live life. And then what that makes you do is like, it gives you enough of a structure to say, okay, this can happen. And I might feel a bit better today, worse today, great today, horrible today. I have something to fall back on, which is my base. And I think it's Adam Grant that said, like, you fall to the level of your systems. You don't rise to the level of your, like, whatever you aspire to. So, like, can you create a system that's bulletproof that will catch you when you're going to have, like, a terrible time in your life? And I promise you will. So every time there's a great time in my life, I'm like, oh God, right. Like the bad is coming, or when it's really bad, I'm like, the good's coming. But you have to get through it. And I think, you need to define that for yourself. And I think obviously eating is one of them. For me, like I started for the first time in my life doing gym or some form of yoga, whatever actually suited my body the most, 4 or 5 times a week. And I actually use that as a way to just it's like a mental meditation for me. I just shut out and I try to cleanse my thoughts and I'm like, right, what is the one main thing or what are some of the main things? And I think that process has been very helpful because I feel I now have myself and then I have my business around me. Whereas I feel like forever it was just business. And then if something happens to me, let's say business does well, business does badly, I suddenly do horribly and then everything is over. So I think sort of realizing that like you need to take really good care of yourself mentally. And like I think journaling is a huge one. Like I wake up every morning and I journal. And it's really basic stuff. Like what do I want to I'm like an engineer, so I do bullet point writing. There's not fancy. It's just like what do I want to do? I have some prompts. Like how do I think the day will go today? What are some things I want to accomplish? What am I grateful for? And I think little things like that, because I don't have to think every day what to write. I just then fill out like bullet points, literally 5 minutes, and I move on and I'm like, right, yeah, I have a structure. So I think that is the most important thing about how you can create the structure that you can fall back on when things get really hard.
And what's the best advice you can give to anyone who's about to start, whether that's a project, a small startup, anything they want to do?
Start it. Spend every single day doing something. And this is one of the advice I got from one of the MDs at Barclays. Actually, he was also the very first investor. He looked at me, he was like, I had a regret in life where I wanted to do things and I never started a startup. Whereas he was like, if you want to do it, grab a coffee, grab your laptop, go to the same cafe every day. Even if you spend, or like every weekend or whenever you have free time, just get started. He's like, stop talking about it, just start doing. Every day. And it's not, don't ask what are you going to do? Just go open your laptop. You're going to end up doing something and then do the same thing again the next day. And it's crazy. Just like the act in itself of saying, I'm going to get a coffee, laptop, cafe, startup time. You'll end up doing something. And I think that's progress. So just get started. Like you need to get started and don't worry about like the end result. It's all about the journey anyway.
As cliche as it sounds, yes, it is all about the journey. Very true. I've got my dopamine hit of the day from you. So, Siddhi, thank you so much for taking the time and being here today. I normally make it very conversational and have a lot to say, but this is probably one conversation where I'm like, just keep listening, Gemma. Just take notes. I'm taking notes here. So thank you so much. I've really learned a lot from you today. And I can only wish the best for Why Hungry. I'll tell you about my experience when I actually have someone coming home. But thank you for being here. Absolutely love talking to you.
Thank you so much. I had such a good time. I think all of your questions were really amazing. Like I love going back down memory lane or like thinking through things because you're living life, but you don't really stop to reflect on sort of your journey. So yeah, thank you so much. And would love to share a discount code if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Founders 50 for 50 off towards your first private jet experience.
Oh, perfect. I'll link that up as well.
Amazing.
We'll do that. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad I contributed to taking you back memory lane. Thanks, Siddhi.
Thanks, Gemma.
Hi, everyone. If you've really enjoyed today's episode, all I ask from you is to please press the subscribe button from wherever you're listening. At the moment, most of you listen to the show on Spotify, but not many of you are subscribed. So all I ask is this little favor to help support the show as we move forward. Thank you so much. Your support means a lot to me, and I'll see you next week.